The Sheikh's Dilemma. Let's have a look at the cluster, a geographic concentration of interconnected institutions. That includes businesses, government agencies, universities, and so on, in a specific field. For example, there's the Northern California wine cluster, including UC Davis, a viticulture program, the Wine Institute in San Francisco, the government nearby in Sacramento, and look at how it's all interconnected to the California agricultural cluster, the tourism cluster, and the food cluster. And we have to know what a cluster is not, namely a workplace. Instead, it's a fabric of daily life. And it's very much about personal relationships. Now let's have a look at Ma'abadah, a Jerusalem performing arts lab. Meet Erel Margalit, born on a kibbutz. He later studied philosophy, one of Israel's wealthiest and most successful venture capitalists. He's also a member of the Knesset from the Labor Party. He even worked for the mayor of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek. He went on to found Jerusalem Venture Partners, JVP, through Yozma. And he developed a real link between technology and art. He converted a printing house to a headquarters for Animation Lab. His goal? To compete with Pixar, producing animated films. Sounds pretty impressive. Now consider another Middle Eastern country trying to develop clusters, Dubai. Like Singapore, Dubai is a very orderly society where the ruler's vision is never challenged. In Dubai, there's no criticism of the government, or of Islam for that matter. For example, websites are banned, and nobody can even call Israel since the 972 country code is permanently blocked. On the plus side, the country is open to outsiders, and it's a trade hub. Sounds good. It sure looks good, aesthetically. And has a tax-free port. What could be better? Not to mention artificial harbors. How cool is that? And we mustn't forget Dubai's liberal trade policy. Definitely a plus. That, in turn, is based on the fact that the economic wellspring of the country, oil and gas, will eventually dry up, and everybody knows it. So foreigners get to repatriate 100% of their capital back to their home countries. Sweet deal, right? Consequently, there's a 100% foreign ownership of property and business. There are special business parks dedicated to specific industries. For example, there's the Dubai Internet City, or DIC. And that's an actual attempt to create a cluster. So what's the problem? The problem is that when it comes to Dubai, there's absolutely no comparison with the number of startups in tiny Israel. A case in point, at DIC, there's absolutely no R&D, no research and development. There are in Dubai large service hubs, but there aren't any innovative clusters. There's no question that the physical infrastructure of Dubai is far and away superior to Israel, but its cultural infrastructure is inferior. Truth is, a cluster needs shared commitment and shared destiny, something that transcends all rivalries, even potential rivalries. In Dubai, foreign nations end up making the money. Then they leave. What it amounts to is a transactional relationship. A transactional relationship. In other words, accomplishments are measured in the various home countries, not in Dubai. The economic and financial rootedness is elsewhere. In Israel, attitudes are very different. You could call it profitable patriotism. Nice ring to it, profitable patriotism. There's what we might call a core purpose behind Israel's clusters, a fundamental reason for being. It's beyond just making money. The truth is, Israel has a purpose. It has a purpose, and the purpose is to provide a secure place on earth for the Jewish people. Take, for example, the technology crash, the great technology crash of 2000. Now meet Yossi Vardi, who helped rebuild Israel's internet sector. Back in 1996, Yossi seeded an internet chat program called ICQ that stands for I Seek You. ICQ allowed Windows users to communicate with each other live in real time. The program took off fast and spread even faster than AOL's AIM. In 1998, AOL bought ICQ for $407 million, and that made Israel truly an internet superpower. That in turn inspired other young Israelis in their own entrepreneurial pursuits. By 2008, of 51 most promising startups in the world, 7 were Israeli. Barbara Tuchman once observed, Israelis have what affluence tends to smother, a motive. It's perhaps akin to what Steve Jobs once said, stay hungry, stay foolish. After all, the profit motive will get an economy only so far. And when times get tough, those not committed are the first to flee. Contrast that with the Arab world, with a population of 225 million, where entrepreneurship plays, let's face it, a negligible role, and where economic activity is driven by hydrocarbons, specifically oil. Exactly in such places, entrepreneurialism gets stymied. And as for all that Middle East oil wealth, let's face it, it basically shores up autocratic governments because it's wealth that comes right from the ground. Governments in such nations are, let's face it, irresponsive and unresponsive to citizens. There's no need for taxes from the people for support. So who cares about the people? The reality is basically the reverse of an old slogan, namely, no representation without taxation. Get it? Makes sense. The so-called king's dilemma is that liberalization fundamentally challenges the monarch's power. Think about it. Except for Lebanon and Iraq, there's never been a truly free election in the Middle East. In the past, money was spent on imports from the West, on overseas investments, and on the military. The way around the dilemma? Use oil wealth to modernize the infrastructure. That's the idea. So Dubai and other Gulf states decided that the best way to do it is through real estate development. But then, as we know, the real estate bubble burst. In Dubai, real estate declined 30%. In response, the government of Dubai tried developing academic research clusters. But unfortunately, Arab cultural and social institutions have historically been underdeveloped. Arab nations are home to some of the highest illiteracy rates in the world, and that complicates matters as well. As for patents filed from 1980 to 2000, here are the numbers. Saudi Arabia, 171. Egypt, 77. Kuwait, 52. The United Arab Emirates, 32. Syria, 20. Jordan, 15. Israel, now wait for it, 7,652. What can you say? Wow. What about Arab universities? Well, there's the new King Abdullah University in Saudi Arabia. But it can't seem to recruit foreign academic talent because the focus is on national reputation building, not real innovation. I'm sorry. Consider again Israel's case. The famed Chaim Weizmann was a chemist of international renown, known for his work in biotechnology and developing acetone, critical for Britain's development of high explosives during World War I. It just so happens that he was on the Hebrew University's very first board of governors. So were Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, and Martin Buber. Next, consider the Technion, founded in 1912, opened in 1924. Then, of course, there's the Weizmann Institute, founded in 1934. And yes, Tel Aviv University, founded in 1956, the largest in Israel. Now consider the university spin-offs in Israel. From the Weizmann Institute came Yeda, meaning knowledge, a market research company that in turn spawned hundreds of products and other companies. From the Hebrew University came Yisum, meaning implementation or application, a tech transfer company grossing $1 billion annually. Its research has been sold to Johnson & Johnson, IBM, Intel, Nestle, and Lucent Technologies. It ranks 12th in global biotech patents. As for Israeli assets, the country boasts more engineers and scientists per capita than any other country in the world. It's largely dismissive of structural hierarchy, which has turned out to be a pretty good thing. Education in Israel is all about experimentation as opposed to standardization, rote memorization, systems, standards, and deference. In other words, kissing up to teacher. Arab countries and the US are consumed with infrastructure, buildings, more computers, and so on. Yet, Saudi Arabia ranks 43rd out of 45 in educational accomplishment. And teacher performance isn't measured at all. And I think we're aware that the US has a few problems in terms of its own educational record. And let's not forget one important barometer of growth potential: the legal rights and status of women. It's a huge problem in the Arab world. As David Landis of Harvard observed, there's nothing more dilutive to drive and ambition than a sense of entitlement. And when that applies to the whole male half of the society, you've got a problem. What's the takeaway from all of this? The economies of Israel and the Arab world amount to living laboratories for clusters. Nonetheless, a simplistic view of clusters is pretty seriously flawed. There's one huge missing ingredient, namely a stake in the country. A stake in the country, and that's the essential glue. So let it be written. So let it be Googled.